To start with animating React apps, I prepared a little demo project, which you can find attached to this video. It's a very simple project using Create React App. In this project, I got a backdrop, I got a modal, and I got this list component. And if we see all of that in action with npm start, what we will see is that in the end, I just got a modal, which is always there. So we are going to need to add some functionality to show or hide it. And if we manually comment out this modal for now, by simply wrapping it in curly braces, which then contains a block comment with /*, if we do it like this and then save this file, we can work with the list and there simply add items or remove items. And the algorithm for adding items is super simple here, as you can check out in the list component. So this is the application we have, and the idea of course is to animate both the appearance and dismissal of the modal as well as our list of list items. Now with that, let's dive into the different options we have for that. But before we actually start, let's make sure that we have a way of showing and hiding the modal. So I'm going to remove my comments here so that we again show it all the time. And in the modal.js file, I got an on-click listener on the dismiss button where I emit this closed event. Now, let's say I want to control whether the modal is displayed or not inside this modal JavaScript file for now by simply showing or hiding the modal. Now, that is of course something we can do, and we can easily do this by going into the modal CSS file where we define a style for this. I'm, by the way, not using CSS modules here, but still, this is the only file where I use this modal CSS class. So there, we could control whether this modal is visible or not by adding a modal open class to it when it should be shown and a modal closed class when it should not be shown. And then, of course, one trivial way of controlling this is to set display to block when we have modal open and display to none if it should be closed. And we should do the same for the backdrop. So in the backdrop CSS file, I'm also going to add backdrop open and backdrop closed. Now with that, we just have to add some code to both files to make sure we actually take advantage of that. So first of all, I'm going to refactor this backdrop component function here into a function with curly braces, where I then will return the JSX eventually. But before I do so, and that's the reason why I converted this, I want to create my classes array basically. So my CSS classes I want to attach here should be an array. It should always be backdrop, but then it should be backdrop open or closed depending on some prop I receive. So let's say I check if props show is true, and only if that is true I want to add backdrop open, otherwise I'd add backdrop closed. Now finally what I need to do is I need to attach this class here, so the CSS class is constant, and call join to join this into a string. Now with that we can control the display of the backdrop. I'm going to copy that code into my modal.js file, and there too I'll refactor this to take advantage of the fact that we do have a function where we don't just return something, but we will return something. Before we do so, I also want to control my CSS classes here. So let's make sure we return the JSX code here too. But then, as I just said, we should have CSS classes where we have modal, and then we have modal open or modal closed. And I actually use that as my CSS class name here. Again, joining it into one string with that join method. Now with that, we just need to pass the show prop to backdrop and modal. We can do that in the app.js file. There we have a class-based component. Let's now add a state where we add modal is open and set this to false, let's say, at the beginning. And then I will simply change this state. So in this class, I'll add show modal. That should be a function where I simply call this set state and set modal is open to true. And then I will have a close modal function. And that, of course, is all Pretty much straightforward, nothing new. In the close modal function, I will set modal is open to false, just like that. Show modal and close modal. Now, in the modal component, again, I do call this closed prop on a click on the dismiss button. So that is, the closed prop is what I should bind to my close modal method here. So closed will be equal to this close modal, and the backdrop and modal now both need to receive the show prop. That should be this state modal is open, because that will determine whether we want to show or hide the modal. Finally, we need a way to show the modal, and we got this open modal button here. Now all we have to do is hook up the on-click listener there to this show modal. And now with all these things, if we save this, we go back to the application, I click open modal, we see the modal, I click dismiss, we dismiss it. Now that's all nice, but we have no animation. So again, finally, let's work on this animation in the next lecture.